Okay.
Remember? Okay. Maybe into tax, the next Taylor Fisher. And I will start by you want. Yeah. This Renee is passing out the taxes that I made. So I did have them paper clip, but it's kind of, I separated them, figures coming in and figures going out. The color copy on top would be the starting the pack of the figures coming in, and I have included the tax scroll, so you know, wanted to see where those figures are actually coming from, where we see them at. We do have some real property that is still in new construction, so that figure will be changing in the next week or so with the completion of the new construction. I did want to note that we did see a bit of a value change in personal property. A good portion of that is due to our BPP audit program. We have found out that there has been some property that was listed as personal and not business personal. So it needed to be adjusted on a different depreciation schedule. That being said, some of those same accounts have a extension until April 15th, so they could rework their packages. So I do expect to see some of that personal property figure change as well due to those audits and extensions that we haven't seen in the past. But the other numbers are closer to what we're actually gonna see. We're still, those are the ones that are still kind of being figured at the moment. Any questions with that so far? All right. The second paper is a copy of what we found last year with the rebound. That is a copy so you can see last year this year. Then you can have some copies of the tax scroll, which is where those figures were found. And the very last thing in your packets should be a copy of the exemption and exclusion page. That is a breakdown of different properties that we have that have some sort of either exemption or exclusion. And there is a breakdown section for the exempt property that's filed, so this just kind of shows where they're, how they're broken down between government, religious, homestead exemption. And that's a general rundown of the money coming in the packet.
The house on Main Street that was torn down, the burned down facility,
Yes,
when does it go over the courthouse steps?
it has been sent to the attorneys and all the information we had on it was sent with that. Due to the situation with the husband and the wife, that one was probably gonna be a more difficult title, so I do expect it would take the attorneys a little bit longer to get the paperwork and everything done for that one. So it's just the history that we have on it though. But it has been sent, and they have been,
Flag that for us, because people call from time to time to ask about that.
yes, it has been sent,
And
and
that will be one that's sold on the courthouse steps.
unless,
They come in,
yeah, unless they pay the taxes and the demolition, so the total amount due and any attorney fees between now and then. If they paid it, it would be removed from the auction because they would satisfy the lien.
'cause
But if they don't, it will be at the courthouse.
is there probably 3 years in arrears now or 4?
They are 2 years delinquent,
Okay,
and 2026 will be the start of their third year.
Okay.
Because they are at the attorneys, the 26s would immediately be included in the suit. It updates with the lien.
And it is a value on the lot and the field behind that, so it is a value put on both.
It's, I don't have a property record card, but I can definitely send that to anybody later, but it is a land breakdown, and then, I believe they were calling that like a mother-in-law suite. So there is value still from that building. The value from the original house that was demolished was taken off from the original property record.
So if it lasts until September 1, there'll be an additional bill with a property that, since they're still the owners.
So it's gonna be a continuance of the bill, tax liens follow the property. So it's automatically, because we already have the suit started, any balance collected even daily to the interest, to the attorney fees is gonna be part of our lien. So even if they come up after the 26s are due, they'll have to pay any attorney fees, any interest for the 25 and the 24s. And the 26s, even though they wouldn't be considered delinquent, they're automatically put in with our suit. So that would also have to come into play for them to pay it out. Same thing is when it goes to the auction. If there are any taxes still due that aren't covered by the auction, those would have to be paid in full before the deed can be recorded. So whether it's purchased at auction or it's paid out, all fees would have to be paid in full before the decision of moving forward with the new owner. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Do you have any questions on that part? So moving to the portion where I have some changes in my budget. One of them was a $500 increase for professional services. That's just because Pioneer Appraisals, who are currently doing our new construction, is got a new program where they are gonna be doing the card work for us and everything instantaneously. They'll update them, it'll have their initials on it, versus our staff having to key all the changes in the field work. So I did add $500 in case there's a possible rate change with that new program or any fees that may occur with that. The second change that I have is in the equipment under 5,000 line. I did increase it because we were able to repair some of the desks in our office, but there is a couple desks and filing cabinets that are in pretty bad shape and they may need replacement soon. The next two lines are postage. It's gonna go up, it always does. The next one, which is gonna be the biggest, is I asked for an $8,000 increase in the other services. This is one that we touched on briefly about those business personal properties going to be imprinted by Southside, who does our billing and our listing forms already. We're currently sending out a letter telling the business owners that we're not gonna send them a form. Right. So there was the cost for that to convert them, as well as converting the second notices.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with that, okay, so I would tell them, because the postage machine, we have to run all this through the postage machine, which we buy the postage, we have a reserve account, but the amount of stuffing and time, what you put in the hours of the employee and
So it more than pays for itself in the end.
Right, and the second notice is, we had 2 ways we were doing it. The last 2 years, we had started including all personal property, because the verbiage is that we are sending a last notice before we start collections. So we did start to include those. We also noticed that a lot of the gap bills, which came over from the DMV, so they necessarily couldn't get an original bill from our office. They got a discovery from our office. They're now getting second notices, and that did create more increase on our collection on some of those harder to collect bills. So the second notices themselves not only are legally important, but they are very important for the collection, and we've seen good results with having more notices go out. But it takes the whole office at least a week to prepare stuff, hold these notices, and then like the poor postage machine.
Yeah.
And not happy with me.
We actually have a new one, but you know, the wear and tear on that, and then having to purchase the ink on top of the things, the envelopes, because I sat down when Taylor, when I was like, you better do all this, I looked at it, and she thought it was gonna be 8,000, I was like, I would get it. Because by the time we bought all that stuff, and then the cost of printing it off,
Right.
that part you don't see until a month later when they send that invoice, that was that knocked her, she had to,
Yeah, so it's one of those things that when we send out the bills, almost just what we were paying in postage is what it costs us to send out our whole first round of tax bills. So it kind of
Yeah.
is offsetting the cost there. So for those two reasons and any service fees that may be included with those, I did ask for an increase of 8,000 in that one. I also, the business personal property audit county tax services has said that they have seen with other counties that they had a much greater return rate with BPP listings that were auto-populated. So when they get these forms and they didn't know how to fill them out, or they didn't know what it was previously, now they would be getting a form that filled out, this is what you provided to us last year, they would just need to update any changes that they made. They're gonna be more than likely to have responses back in a more timely response. And the last ask that I had for, is the copy pro. I provided the information Scott gave us about the new copier in our office. Ours did do us pretty good. It helped us get through that mailer along with the office, and we were able to have the interns scan all of our 93 and 85 retained property record cards online, and our gave a huge meeting for that. But it's very helpful that we now have a better way to digitize some of those older records for anybody that needs access to them. We can pull them up by parcel number now and send them as needed. But our machine did a good meeting with that. So in the packet, I did have the information from Scott that he provided about the copier, and this was just a confirmation from, it's OSG, but they also go by South Data, who does our billing and our listing forms, that they were gonna be able to convert to second notices, and we still have some formatting issues that we're working on with the BPP to see if it's something that they can do, or if it's something that we might have to just get help with in-house. But they believe we can do it, so that was the conversation we've had, so far about those two big asks and the other services. Any questions on this?
Makes sense. We're smart enough for they postage and all the things and like the stuffing in the hours. Yeah, you said a week of full staff. That made
It
it
was,
justified right there.
a week of stuff and,
Everybody, like, yeah, you have full support at this line.
yeah.
yeah, 'cause when we had, luckily, thankfully, the postmaster was so nice to give us, because when machines was switched out, they didn't send us, they were supposed to send us an extra ink for the postage stamp, and they didn't. So he gave us one and we replaced it, but if we wouldn't have had that, because he was not willing to run them through his postage meter. So we were gonna have to buy stamps and stamp each one, which,
Ooh. Okay.
Might have been another couple of
Okay,
days.
yeah, okay. Good to know. Well, I don't have anything. I don't know if you're around to that or somebody else does. Thank you. And just to let you know, we do have a person coming in from IT that's looking into the door things and all that for all the buildings. So we have that question here for, that'll be coming out at some point. All right.
Thank you. I feel like I'm missing something.
No. Like I said, this year was much shorter than last year because